Hello YouTube, it's Clormo with another LogiPlex tutorial, talking today about the Alchemy multiple segment envelope. That's in the modulation section, and you can see it in the control panel as MSEG. MSEG standing for multiple segment. And before I go into that, as usual, if this is the first video that you're seeing from my series or from anything on my channel and you like that, please, I invite you to subscribe, share with others. If you like, please press the like button. Dislike, press the dislike. You can leave me questions, comments, or any requests that you have. I will make sure to put it in my list for later. You can also contact me anywhere that's shown at the bottom of the video graphic there. You can search my music, my writing material, all that. Thanks for all the subscribers, for your continued support and sharing my music and sharing my tutorials and asking questions and all that good stuff. So now let's jump right into Logic to again keep this video as short as possible, knowing the amount of material to be covered anyways. So just a little recap: modulation section, control panel, modulation rack, LFO controls, envelope controls, the normal type, and then the multi-segment envelope controls. The multi-segment envelope generator, it's going to allow for more complex modulation envelopes to be created and edited. This is because you can create multiple segments, literally multiple segments. If you see this graph here, you can have different segments that are going to shape your envelope, as opposed to with the normal envelope where you have just the option of creating more curved like shapes, and you cannot add multiple segments in between these. You only have those points. In the multi-segment though, you can add a variety of points and therefore create more fine-tuning and more complex shapes. This, same as the normal envelope, is just going to show you the output of the parameters that you choose, and it's just gonna show you that output, that curve that results. The ruler here, same as with the normal envelope, time is gonna be in seconds unless you have your sync selected, which is gonna tie to your tempo. Let me turn it off a little bit again. The envelope, as I said, appears as a series of points or lines and curves that are going to represent the different envelope segments, and a play icon across the display is going to track the progress of that. If I press play, you can see, and that's true for all other modes, well, for all the other envelope modes, and it's gonna progress depending on your MIDI information and so on and so forth. You can, again, like I said, add any number of points as I press here, and I can just shape this however I want and move stuff around and do this, and you quickly see right away what a crazy thing I just did there. And that's all possible with the multi-segment. One thing that you're gonna see here is that when I enter into these parameters here, that's gonna define how the points that are created are gonna behave, how that point creation behaves, tied to the sync button. The sync button here has a even greater effect into what you're making. Why? Because, and a big importance too, because if you put a lot of points into this envelope and you want to control them, I think that it would be beneficial if you want to make sure that everything is in sync with your tempo, but you can also make things run freely and get creative with that way, you know. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is that there's this two, let me just move them. You see this here, you may be reminded of something that I have discussed already. This is just a loop region. You have your start and your end. You cannot move or have this one over here and then this one over here. This is the same functionality and works in the same way as with the source editors. How I show that loop region in the graphic for your partials and all that good stuff. Those loop markers, you know, you can drag them around and you can drag them. Obviously they're gonna be tied and they're gonna be affected by the sync button. Just like I said, if you don't have the sync button, then you are dealing with seconds. So I'm gonna actually make this go to the very beginning, and let me see if I can just catch this guy. It's a little bit difficult to do sometimes. There it is. So, and there you have it. So that's I think pretty self-explanatory. Now going into, you can also scroll here. I think that's probably obvious, but you can zoom and scroll and get even more detail into how many points you can put between those envelope segments. So that gives you a lot of power over that. As with the other modes, you can go to show target always and refer to what you have for the different modes, but the multi-segmented one, you will not be able to see it there unless I actually add one. So there you go. Unless you have one. In this example, I didn't have one, so that's why it wasn't on the list. But I just quickly added one to that filter 2 knob, and now it's visible. These parameters here work exactly the same way as with the normal envelope. So what that means is that you have this current pop-up. I have 2. Again, refer to the show target, and you can see how many, where they are. You can change them. You can change between them, right? There's always one by default. It wasn't assigned to anything, but it's there. Number 2, it's blank in this case. You have your trigger button that acts in the same manner. When it's on, your envelope, this multi-segment envelope, is going to be re-triggered with each node. It's going to start from the very beginning. If it's off, then the envelope is going to trigger for the first node and then continue until it's done. And it's only going to re-trigger for nodes that have received all other nodes that have been released. When you are done with pressing all your nodes, then you can re-trigger it. The file is going to let you do the same thing. There's a bunch of presets, not that many, but there's a few that you can start with. And let me bring a ramp up. Pretty simple, right? It just goes from the up. Let me just do a random one, something a little bit more crazy, but much more points in there, much more segments. You can tweak, save, copy, paste, clear, randomize further, and so on and so forth. Nothing different. I already explained the trigger and the sync work in the same way as the normal envelope. I'm gonna turn off the sync in this case now, so you can see the difference again. You can see the lines that are gonna define where you can match and sync with the tempo, measurements, bars, beats, subbeats, etc., etc. This is the new thing here. So let me take a little bit more time here in this section. The first is this snap Y pop-up menu, and you will notice right away that you have from 1.1 to 1.36. Those are the options that you have. So what does this do? What this does is just going to quantize. That's why you have this measurements there. You're going to quantize the point levels or the Y values of your points. You're gonna limit them exactly to whatever fraction that you select from that list. So for example, if you set that to 1/3, every point level, it's gonna be snapped to values between 0, 1/3, 2/3, and 1. So it's 3/3 make 1, right? So it's gonna do that and go each other way in increments of 1/3. When you drag a point, that's what's gonna happen. So off is gonna disable that quantization and just let you move everything freely like I was doing before. So you see this is moving freely, but I have it with sync, but now I don't want to sync anything. There's another point there, so I can't move past that because I have the edit mode as normal. So normal is just gonna let you move just one point, but I'm gonna get there in a second. If I snap this to, let's say 2.6, let's do that. You see how the Y kind of is jumping a little bit. That's because it's snapping to that sixth, and it doesn't matter if the sync is on or not. I just brought it on just so you could see the different divisions there. And if I do that to 1 to 1, you see jumps from 0 to 1 right away, and you can see it in the when I'm dragging. You see the X and Y result. So that's all that snap point does. If it's off, then you can fine tune in percentage from 0 to 100%, which is obviously always one because that division results in an entire number, right, into 1. Depending on which one you choose is how many steps you can go from 0 to 1. You can go, in the example I gave, 3, 15, 36, etc., etc. Then down here there's this loop mode. This is the same loop mode that's present in every part of Alchemy. In the advanced view, I showed this to you in the source editors. I think we saw it also in the modulation section, in the filter. It's scattered around in a few places and it works in the same way. So the loop mode, when there's none, the looping is disabled. So the looping markers are going to be visible, but they're not going to do anything. If you have continuous, the loop is going to play continuously forward until it's done, until you depress a note. If you have it held, it's just going to keep going forward. Sustain, the section is going to be played when a note is held, and when you release it, the rest of the note is going to play. So if you press a note, it's going to stay in the loop region. You release it, it plays the rest of the envelope in this case. Forward and back is going to loop the section, alternatively forward and back while you are pressing a note. So that's kind of a random way of a loop mode. It's the same thing as every other section that you see this loop mode. I'm gonna be surprised if you see something different, because this is just to make it work to those other sections and to introduce subtleties. If you have different loop modes selected, are gonna give you different results. Then down here there's this edit mode pop-up window, same as with the source editors and parameters where you were dealing with partials and the partial edit window. If you have normal, you're only gonna affect one point. The point that you select and move around is gonna be the one affected. If you do slide and I move this, everything's gonna slide to the right of the point that I'm editing, and everything's gonna keep its relative distance between points. Then everything else stays put. If I try to go to the left, I can't. If I do stretch though, if I go like this, whatever's to the left it's gonna stretch, and whatever's to the right is gonna be compressed, so it loses that relative distance. And then if I go the other way, it's gonna do the same thing, and it creates some wackiness there. So I just randomized it again just to bring it to something more visible. The window here is going to reflect those changes, and you can not undo any of this. So that's something that I don't know if you have noticed, how when I edit something I don't even bother trying to do an undo to bring it back. It won't work. This is why it's a lot of experimental thinking going into this. I want to say the word thinking. So if you are changing parameters around, keep in mind that if you screw something up, just unscrew it. Don't do the undo, just move stuff manually back and try to make it back to where it actually was, where you liked it. If you can't do that, but you get it close enough, then you'll have to deal with that and live with it, because unfortunately there's no undo button here. But with that, I'm gonna leave you for this tutorial. In the next video, then talking about the sequencer parameters, and hopefully that's gonna give you a little bit to do between now and then to experiment a little bit with this modulation parameters. So anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for the support as usual. Peace out, YouTube.